Tea time. Welcome everybody, Souldin of the Grin Bros here, and it's time for another episode of Tea Time. Now then, for today's tea is actually one that I have had in the past. In fact, in my tea notebook is listed as number 3. That tea happens to be French Earl Grey, which I would get the box out to tell you the description, but I'm not wanting to drag it over. The tea leaves can be a bit loose in that. It's one of my tea leaf teas. I actually got it as a Christmas box set. I need to finish drinking the rest of it. So I'll read it out of my book. Earl Grey gets a French twist, which is oh so fruity. A black tea with hints of fruit and dabbles with classic bergamot. And for thoughts, I've just written down here, smells like bubblegum. That's because that's actually why I'm having this tea again. One, because I don't really have any new teas unless I make some of my own, which I do actually have a tea making box there, but that's a bit complicated to do at almost midnight. But also because I didn't really put much down for the thoughts. In fact, due to the late night recordings that I do, I haven't actually written down the thoughts of a lot of the teas I've tried out. I've written down the basic information, stuff I can write down prior to actually doing the recording, but afterwards I tend to just almost head to bed almost immediately, which is kind of a problem. So after this tea time, I'll have tried out my French Earl Grey once again, and be able to write down my thoughts on it once again. At least more than smells like bubblegum. In any case, for today's tea time, I was originally going to do this nice little cool little thing where I was going to use my Nanka voice and attempt a bit of a song and then interrupt that song with just a sudden no. But the problem was, character-wise, I generally characterize Nanka as either not liking singing or generally not being good at singing. So to try and actually do a song in another character's voice whilst attempting to also do it badly, I'm not sure how I'd go about doing that. That sounds very tricky for me to do. Complete amateur I am at, voice impersonations. So instead I'm just going to say the title outright. The title of this video is Jump Up Super No. Or Nope. Maybe Nope. I was originally going to say Nope, but no just came out of my mouth instead. Which, of course, I was going to say Jump Up Superstar. I was going to sing a bit of, what's it called? Is it called Jump Up Superstar or is it called One Up Girl? But I was going to use Nanka's voice and attempt to sing a part of it and then interrupt it with no. And that's a bit of a confusing title, I guess, but basically the point of this tea time is to talk a bit about Super Mario Odyssey, or primarily, why I am not getting Super Mario Odyssey. Yes, this is an entire tea time about why I, personally, am not getting Super Mario Odyssey. I guess I came up with this tea time because it was unavoidable seeing Super Mario Odyssey everywhere. Like everyone I'd subscribed to, almost everyone I subscribed to, except for a few of the retro gamers sort of people like Nostalgia Nerd or It's a Pixel Thing, you were all just talking about Super Mario Odyssey. It's this inescapable thing, and it's like, other sort of platform games around the time would also end up mentioning Super Mario Odyssey. Videos unrelated. To the lead up to Super Mario Odyssey, it was hyped up, and so a lot of the YouTubers and such, talked about it in other articles and other videos. And, it was an inescapable thing that kind of exploded and, its presence was everywhere and I couldn't avoid it anywhere. So, ironically, I've decided to jump on that bandwagon, a little bit late now when I'm uploading this, whoever that is actually, to actually address why I am not getting Super Mario Odyssey and don't have an interest in getting Super Mario Odyssey. And no interest isn't 100% true, because for what I will fault it for, in general, it does look like a good game. It looks like a fun game. It looks like a world and game full of hard work and charm and dedication to it, and I can see why others enjoy it. But the reason why I have no interest in getting Super Mario Odyssey, which is something I wasn't interested in the moment I saw it, is for me, it's not my type of Mario game. People have often commented in quite a few other videos, usually bring up Sonic Forces, and putting that game down in comparison to Super Mario Odyssey, or comparing the two whenever the Sonic Forces reviews were coming out. Even some of the Bubsy games reviews had Super Mario Odyssey as its comparison. And out of those, I would rather choose the Bubsy or Sonic Forces games, despite knowing that they will probably of lesser quality. Of course, the Nintendo Mario games are always of amazing quality. I'd rather go with one of those two than Super Mario Odyssey, despite knowing how good Super Mario Odyssey is. And the main reason for that is gameplay style. Now, I enjoy Mario games. I enjoy a lot of the Mario spin-offs, and I've enjoyed a lot of the Mario platformers since I played. My very first one was, I think, Super Mario Land 2, The Golden Coins. It was one of my very first video games, that was. And I've enjoyed Mario games, sort of ever since, sort of thing. But there was a big break for me in terms of not enjoying Mario games, or at least mainline Mario games. And as you might be able to tell with the fact that Super Mario Odyssey is what I'm mentioning as a game that I'm not interested in, the type of Mario game that gave me that break of not enjoying it was Super Mario 64. An amazing game, but it's one that it felt to me at the time. There's a quote that me and Mo made later on in regards to VR. I can't remember it precisely, but it was something along the lines of, it's impressive tech, but that's all there is to it. And it kind of felt to me what Super Mario 64 was. I mean, to a bit less of it to such an extreme extent, because even I could tell there was a lot of charm in Super Mario 64. But Super Mario 64 didn't feel like a Mario game to me. It didn't have the essence of a Mario game to me. It felt and controlled completely different to a Mario game, even disregarding the fact that obviously, it is 3D and obviously it's hard to preserve the gameplay elements when transitioning into 2D game into 3D. However, like say with Legend of Zelda, I always felt that the top-down Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past transitioned very well into the 3D Legend of Zelda. It felt like a very natural fit. But I never felt that way with Super Mario, say, World to Super Mario 64. And a part of that is the fact that Super Mario games, despite what you may think, always felt like a much more speedier pursuit to the goal, a very linear path sort of thing. Super Mario 64 was kind of the start of my lesser interest in games with an open world sort of view to it, more expansive sort of worlds where the direction is less clear and you can do certain things in usually the order you want. I tend to not be a big fan of those style of games, and like I was Super Mario 64, I'd often get annoyed of going back into the same levels even though the missions were different. I missed the linear nature and the platforming thing that felt more natural to me in terms of what I wanted to do, of the Super Mario World games. And Super Mario Odyssey, going back to that Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine sort of 3D formula of Mario games, was naturally never going to interest me a huge lot. Whilst I'm really interested in the world and the charm and such, and think it'd be interesting to watch someone play, in terms of playing, I have no interest in doing that myself at all. There is nothing to really excite me in regards to that. And yet, despite all that, despite how I do enjoy a lot of the past Mario games, I'm perfectly okay with Nintendo taking this direction, going back to the 3D formula of Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine with Super Mario Odyssey. I'm not feeling like I'm missing out by not playing Super Mario Odyssey, or not being able to, or even in future not being able to experience 3D Marios for a long while, or for ages, sort of thing. And the reason for that is, to me, the perfect 3D Mario game, or a very close to perfect 3D Mario game, already basically came out. What I wanted was a 3D Mario game that played like a 2D Mario game. And that came out along with having multiplayer features, extra characters, some cool power-ups, lovely graphics, fantastic controls, and an epic final boss battle that put Mario's skills to its use, rather than trying to make it more combat-oriented. And that's Super Mario 3D World. My the big sort of Mario game, my Super Mario 64, as it were, the 2D Mario going into 3D, has already come about in the fact that Super Mario 3D World exists. That Wii U entry was basically what I wanted from Super Mario 64, but never got. It was the 2D Mario gameplay style in 3D. And then it's with all these extra benefits, like, heck, they added multiplayer. And, it made it a real fantastic experience. A criticism I often have with the Super Mario sort of games, even the 2D ones, is uninteresting boss battles. But I felt that, the final boss battle in Super Mario 3D World put Mario to its best use in that they focused it as a platforming battle instead, with the emphasis on platforming rather than fighting. And I felt that actually worked a lot better for a final boss battle. The mood was perfect and everything, but Mario doesn't do well in terms of trying to make it a combat-styled game. So I felt it was a lot better than basically going, okay, forget the combat sort of thing, let's make it purely platforming. And you defeat your boss with, via getting through a platforming course, which I felt worked a lot better for Mario, because its strength isn't so much in taking out enemies, but rather sort of avoiding or jumping over them, sort of thing. But yeah, so for me, I'm kind of satisfied in terms of 3D Mario games. So, because Super Mario 3D World has already kind of fed that to me, I got what I always longed for a very long time. Of course, I'd like to see it surpassed someday, so I'd love to see him go back to trying to do the sort of 2D Mario and 3D formula once more. But you know what? People have been waiting for to go. I got what I wanted effectively, so I'm willing to wait for it. There are plenty of other platformers that can satisfy me in the meantime, and Super Mario 3D World is at least within like sort of top 50 sort of favourite games, so I think it's quite nestled quite well. If I want to experience that, and I'll go back and play that sort of thing. I'm not too worried about the future of Mario in terms of wanting to play that sort of game again. As much as I am with certain other series where I'd sort of be weighing, oh man, I really wish I could play this style of game again if they diverged off their current path. Like Sonic Adventures. I'm not a big fan of the shift to the boost formula sort of mechanics, so I long for the days of Sonic Adventure. But with Mario, it's much more recent with Super Mario 3D World, I guess. Like with Sonic Adventure, it's been a heck of a while since the last adventure game, and the last good adventure game. Whereas Super Mario 3D World, is fairly recent, and even ignoring that, there have been good 2D Mario games in the past since then, which the 2D gameplay is kind of what I wanted more so, but Super Mario 3D World is simply taking that 2D gameplay into a 3D formula. Yeah, so if I was going to choose between, as I mentioned, Super Mario Odyssey or Sonic Forces or Bubsy Woolly Strike Back sort of thing, I would go for the latter two rather than Super Mario Odyssey, simply because even though the others are poor quality in comparison to Super Mario Odyssey, of course Nintendo games are a hard standard, particularly their mainline Mario games, to sort of match up to, I would go for the others because the gameplay style is more of my thing. It's sort of like how I'd rarely go for a first-person shooter game, even if it's a really well-made one, because I don't have much interest in first-person shooters. I love, GoldenEye is quite fun as a multiplayer game from time to time, and I think it's a good game, but it's not my sort of thing. So at that, despite Super Mario Odyssey being a game that people say, oh, this is a must-play sort of thing, to me, not really. Like, must play in terms of maybe it's some, that sort of game is probably worth experiencing at some point. But I think certain games will suit certain people, and, it's not, I've already experienced its style of game before, and I know I'm not a huge fan of it. And I have played other games of its style and tried to like them, but no, not for me. Like, there's so many games I want to play, both in the past and in the future, that I'm not going to worry about a game that I know on a style basis I'm probably not going to enjoy nearly as much as others I could enjoy, even if they are not as good. Okay, it's a bit of a random thing to talk about, but I kind of just wanted to share my thoughts because, dear gosh, that Super Mario Odyssey stuff is everywhere. I'm glad so many people are enjoying it. I'm glad so many people are having fun. Sort of like how I was very glad to receive Super Mario 3D World because I'd been missing out on Mario games for a while, in terms of at least in the 3D perspective, and it was kind of the 3D Mario game I'd always longed for. So if people can be happy for me that I finally got that with the Wii U, and unfortunately, people who are wanting that more true 3D Mario experience have to wait, I can perfectly wait in the future for another take on that sort of Mario style of gameplay, whilst people meanwhile enjoy their more open-ended sort of expansive world of Super Mario Odyssey and the like. Okay, going to try my French Earl Grey. Again, I've already had it before. Hopefully it's not too hot. Yep, I know exactly what I'm going to write down here. I've written down, smells like bubblegum. So let's put, tastes like bubblegum. People find this very weird whenever I say this, but it's the best way I can describe it. I mean, it's a little bit more bitter than bubblegum, but if you imagine a bubblegum flavoured sort of food, it's like that, the sort of flavours which say they're bubblegum flavoured. Not sure what that means, because, they're not a very specific bubblegum there, but it tastes like something that's bubblegum flavoured. It's a bubblegum flavoured tea. That's how French Earl Grey tastes to me. A little bit more bitter, but of course it's tea, and I've got it with no milk, so... Anyway, that's just my thoughts on Super Mario Odyssey and why I'm not planning on purchasing it at any point. Maybe for Grin Brothers, Rafi could play it and I could watch or something. I mean, he's probably got it for Christmas, so... In any case, hope you enjoyed, and cheerio!